Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 1 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall.
And Parker Allen.
Oh God, are we going to talk about coronavirus again?
Oh, yeah. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku, Japan's most fashionable quarantine bunker. We have some serious important information to share with you today. Brace yourselves.
Tokyo Wave, weekly updates from Japan with Aaron
and Parker.
Two Americans with a passion for telling you what's going on right now on the ground in Tokyo.
Straight from our studio in Harajuku, join us in segments featuring
this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and absolutely random garbage.
Also, there's a rad synth intro.
Awesome!
This week in Japan. Here are this week's news highlights.
Tokyo 2020 has been postponed to Tokyo 2021.
Japanese government inches closer to declaring a state of emergency as Tokyo sees rising corona infections.
Governor Koike, in an emergency press conference, has mentioned the possibility of a Tokyo lockdown.
The virus hit Diamond Princess exits quarantine in Yokohama. Yeah, so I mean, this week we definitely saw an escalation in pretty much everything we just mentioned.
Yeah, and it's all bad news, right? There's no good news.
Yeah, I know.
Last week we had the whiskey. I couldn't find any whiskey this week. I guess there's none left in the supermarket.
But, last week we predicted that by the time listeners were listening to our next podcast that the Olympics would be, in fact, postponed or canceled.
We said canceled. They're postponed, which, to be perfectly honest with you, is much better than being canceled.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that happened very quickly. And it was really funny and shows kind of the state of uncertainty even within the decision-making bodies, both within Japan and the IOC, which is headquartered in Switzerland. But we really saw, the IOC said, give us 4 weeks to decide the fate of Tokyo 2020. And then just a few days later, the... Oh God! It was actually on Monday. An IOC member, and his name is Dick Pound.
Dick Pound.
Yeah, Dick Pound. Dick Pound came out of nowhere on Monday with a statement to the media saying that the Tokyo Olympics will be postponed, which was really interesting. It kind of sounded like Dick Pound was kind of flying off the handle with this communication, but just in the days after, it actually came out that they had indeed decided to postpone it, and the official wording is to a time before August 2020, I think is the word, the 2021.
Right. That's what I had read as well, which I think is actually great. Japan can continue to ride this whole, economic / advertising wave that they've created for 2020.
But don't you think it's a bit weird? I mean, out of all of the ways they could have, told the world about this news, why Dick Pound? All right, so I'm sure the world is wondering, who is this Dick Pound and why is his name so hilarious? I have done the research so that you don't have to. Richard William Duncan Pound is a Canadian swimming champion.
Oh, wow.
A lawyer and a prominent spokesman for ethics in sport.
Impressive.
Dick was the first president of the World Anti-Doping Agency, and Pound... I can't do it. Dick was the first president of the World Doping Agency and also has served as vice president of the International Olympic Committee. So, Dick Pound is 78 years old, and Aaron, guess how many kids he has?
I have no idea.
5.
Five kids, wow.
Dick Pound.
Yeah.
78 years old, Has a lot of kids. He also has lots of awards. He has the Laureus World Sports Award for Spirit of Sport. He also has a very high and esteemed accolade from Japan. He has the Gold and Silver Star of the Order of the Sacred Treasure.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Dick Pound is an extremely impressive man. So, Dick Pound, if you're listening to this broadcast today, the people of the world, in their last dying breath, would like you to know that you have a very funny name, Mr. Dick Pound. Thank you. Next up, the Japanese government has signaled that it is inching towards declaring a state of emergency as Tokyo sees ever-rising coronavirus infections.
Yeah, so on Thursday, at which point Japan had seen about right over 2,000 cases of the novel coronavirus and over 50 deaths, including those from the Diamond Princess cruise ship, the central government created a special task force headed by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to devise ways for the country to better respond to the outbreak.
Wow. So this announcement has enabled Prime Minister Abe to declare a state of emergency, which he can do at any time now under a recently revised law, although the government hasn't signaled that it is considering a move just yet. There are reverberations that suggest that we are getting closer to that situation. And I mean, state of emergency. We thought we'd be in one last week. We're still not in one right now, but the clock is ticking. It's Friday afternoon.
You know, we've been seeing the vernacular everywhere, declare a state of emergency, although this hasn't been passed, as you said. But today, a lot of people have even started panic buying. So the tension is quite high.
Yes, and we're seeing a lot of new words enter the Japanese vocabulary. A lot of interesting kind of Japanizations of foreign-sounding words like overshoot and
cluster.
And the other one is lockdown. We use lockdown in English, right?
Yeah, they're using lockdown in the UK and
yeah.
But actually in America, they're not using lockdown.
Really?
So in the States, they're using the vernacular shelter in place, which, you know, has a much nicer, warmer ring to it.
Than Tokyo lockdown. Thinking about potentially why America chose not to use lockdown, don't you think it might have something to do with those active shooter drills?
Ooh, good point. Good point.
So, in short, lockdown means you're getting shot at, and shelter in place means you're just gonna die of some terrible disease.
Or you're just chilling at home.
Listening to Tokyo Wave.
Welcome to Tokyo Wave.
Tokyo Wave. Next up, the governor of Tokyo, Yuriko Koike, has mentioned this Tokyo lockdown, and that really sent people into a panic. On Wednesday night, the governor mentioned the possibility of a citywide lockdown for the first time earlier this week, saying that it may become the only option left if social distancing fails to prevent the spread of the coronavirus across Tokyo. We're going to focus on this more later in Tokyo Panic Room.
Yeah, you know, I think most people in Japan are not practicing social distancing. Even on Instagram, looking at stories, everyone's still going to Hanami, which is cherry blossom viewing here in Japan.
Yes, and it looks like the governor has been watching them from her magic crystal ball and or periscope, and they basically just screwed us all over. So thanks, guys. Well, unfortunately, we will not be able to cordon them off in the Diamond Princess because it has set sail as the virus-hit ship has exited quarantine in Yokohama.
So the Diamond Princess, a cruise ship that captured headlines after an outbreak of COVID-19 among those on board, left a pier in Yokohama port Wednesday after nearly 2 months of quarantine.
Yeah, this Diamond Princess made global headlines and really caused quite the kerfluffle for the government, who did not want to include the Diamond Princess infection statistics within the statistics for Japan. And very famously now is we all heard how the nation of Japan actually lobbied the World Health Organization to separate those statistics.
Yeah, it was really surprising, you know, at the beginning of February when you looked at all the countries and you had China, Japan, Hong Kong, Diamond Princess.
The ship's departure was made possible only after a lot of disinfection work was completed and the local quarantine station in Yokohama gave them the okay in the form of a quarantine certificate. I actually drove past the Diamond Princess because, as everyone's heard, it was in the port of Yokohama, but it was actually not at the usual place for passenger ships over there near the Red Brick Warehouse. Great name. And around there near Yamashita Park. However, it was actually moved to Daikoku Pier, which is really close to that place famous for all of the Drift Kings. There's a big parking area where all of the car nuts go to show off their rides and do donuts. But it was right next to there. And so Daikoku Pier, other than having that parking area, also has a place where these huge, massive cargo ships actually load cars that have been produced in Japan that are being shipped around the world for sale. And so it was just, where a bunch of cars would be usually just parked waiting to be loaded onto a ship was the Diamond Princess, and a bunch of TV and media crews and a bunch of local officials and paramedics, et cetera, et cetera. And that happens to be right next to the expressway. So until very recently, you could drive right by the Diamond Princess and say, "Hi, Diamond Princess."
It's like a local tourist attraction.
Yeah, I went down to Kamakura a few days ago on business, and on the way there, I'm like, "Oh my God, is that the Diamond Princess?" Yeah, that looks like a 3,000 person cruise ship to me. And of course, having seen it and thought, wow, it really kind of puts the news right in front of you. And so I drove by it again on the way back.
I bet traffic's pretty jammed up in that area, no?
I think I almost hit a truck looking at it. So the Diamond Princess, it's like last month's news, but, from the total 3,711 passengers and crew members, including those who got off the ship earlier, 712 people ended up testing positive for the virus, and 10 who were on the ship have died.
Wow.
And according to the company who operates the ship, Carnival, after leaving the Daikoku Pier, the ship will stop by another pier in the port to receive the items necessary to get back to normal luxury cruise services, such as mattresses, linen supplies, and interior accessories. And actually on May the 16th, the company has said that the Diamond Princess is scheduled to begin an 8-day cruise visiting the cities of Kochi, Hiroshima, Matsuyama, and Miyazaki in western Japan, in addition to Busan in South Korea. This tour will start and end at Kobe Port, so buy your tickets here from the Tokyo Wave Travel Agency.
The Corona Cruise.
Yeah, so actually, an official from Carnival said that the service restart is only a plan, depending on the situation. In addition, this official declined to disclose the number of bookings made for the cruise.
I'm guessing it's somewhere close to
0. But maybe there's like a bunch of YouTubers who want to get on the Corona ship.
Welcome aboard Corona Cruises,
where all of your dreams come true.
the weird thing of the week.
Oh, hell no! Okay.
Well, Aaron, sometimes I take deep dives on Wikipedia, and that enables me to find weird things of the week. Mm-hmm. And this week, I would like to introduce everyone to a place in glorious England called Shitterton.
Shitterton.
That's Shitterton. Shitterton.
Oh, okay. So
Yes, it's a hamlet in Dorset, and it has attracted worldwide attention for its name, which dates back at least 1,000 years. What do you think it means, Aaron?
Shitterton. Beautiful place.
Of course. Now, actually, the name of Shitterton, which dates back 1,000 years to, the Middle Ages, and means farmstead on the stream, used as an open sewer.
Okay. So it is a little bit similar to maybe its modern interpretation if someone heard it.
I would say so.
Yeah.
And of course, given its humorous name, Shitterton has been frequently noted on lists of unusual places. The problem it was facing was that youths kept on stealing the signs.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, if you lived, a few towns away from Shitterton, I mean, you would go with like the bros to go steal the sign, right? Because
Oh yeah, that would just be like hazing. I mean, that's the first thing you have to do, right?
yeah, it's like, no, you do it. You steal the Shitterton sign.
Guys, I stole the sign.
Can you imagine that? You're like a teenager growing up and you've got like posters on your wall. You've got like a Ferrari and a Lamborghini and that Shitterton sign you stole. I mean, what if your parents barged in on you and they saw the sign Son, I cannot believe you stole the Shitterton sign once again. This is utterly unacceptable.
Nice British accent there.
Thank you. But the way that they fixed their sign stealing problem is even better, because a few years ago, one of the villagers decided that in order to stop the theft problem, the way to make sure that everyone knew that they were in Shitterton without interruption was to engrave the village's name on a 1.5-ton rock.
Oh, wow.
So now if you go to Dorset, you can visit Shitterton Rock. Perfect for selfies, and podcast banter.
No, we should definitely check that out the next time we're in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, Shitterton has also a collection of historic thatched buildings that date back to the 18th century and earlier.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
there's some old Shitterton there.
We got to get our share of the old Shitterton.
So if Shitterton had a pub, well, it doesn't apparently, but if it did have a pub, what do you think that pub would be called?
Not sure.
Well, I think the Japanese chain The Hub should make a branch down there.
Oh, maybe we should send them an email.
The Shitterton Hub.
Get your Shitterton down at the Shitterton.
That would be a good name for a... there's actually a real town in Tennessee called Bug Tussle.
What is it? Bug what?
Bug Tussle.
Bug Tussle?
Bug Tussle.
Oh, wow.
There's also another town in Tennessee called Parker's Crossroads. I didn't invent it, promise.
Yeah, there's some weird town names in Florida, too. We have Baghdad.
Bombs over Baghdad.
Christmas.
Oh.
Doctor's Inlet.
Doctor's Inlet.
Yeah, Elfers. I'm not sure who's naming it.
Elfers.
Yeah.
Is Doctor's Inlet right next to Elfers? So I think the doctors might have a strange fetish.
They're a bit separated.
Those pointy ears. Operation time.
Wait, Parker, did you hear that sound?
Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to crack open a Corona and surround yourself with 2-ply toilet paper, because next up we have Tokyo Panic Room.
Tokyo Panic Room.
Today on Tokyo Panic Room, we're going to talk about the situation in Tokyo as we inch closely towards lockdown as the virus cases climb and national emergency is seemingly looming in the wings. Actually, I just looked on Twitter, and today is Friday. Today, again, we had 40 new cases of coronavirus. That is the third day in a row that the number of new coronavirus cases in Tokyo has been over 40 cases. And this is just after, a couple days after Governor Koike announced on Wednesday that she is considering a Tokyo lockdown if people don't get their stuff together and comply with the still voluntary requests to avoid all unnecessary trips outside.
Yeah.
Her announcement on Wednesday evening sent Tokyoites to bum rush the supermarkets. Did you see the pandemonium that ensued?
Yes. So supermarkets everywhere, completely packed. People are lining up outside. I actually just went on Amazon and bought some frozen foods. So
Smart. Well, I was watching the news unfold on Twitter, and it actually sounds like right before the actual announcement took place, there was a news flash on the newswire, and from that news flash, people were leaving work early actually to go to the supermarket to start buying. And of course, some people were buying just the essentials for the next few days, and other people were buying the essentials for the next few years. So we had a lot of hoarding, as we saw earlier with toilet paper, but this time they didn't stop at toilet paper. They bought up everything.
Jeez, that's the worst. I mean, I think we were watching Japanese TV the other night, and this guy had a year and a half's worth of toilet paper in his apartment just for him, you know?
Well, I mean, maybe he just has to poop a lot.
But it's just terrible, man. I mean, I think that's the worst kind of reaction. But yeah, without a doubt, it went very quickly from, oh, let's go look at the cherry blossoms and drink in the park to, we need to stock up for a year.
Yes, definitely. Well, and I think, it's funny because you see a lot of global news reports kind of praising Japan for using masks and social distancing and lots of other things that aren't actually happening.
Yeah, everyone has a very false perception of what is going on here.
Yes. I mean, the past couple of weeks, I mean, we mentioned this on the last episode, but by and large in Tokyo, people are pretending like it's business as usual.
No, yeah, they'll tell you, no, everything's fine. We're going to work. Everything's fine. But not this week. Everything's not fine all of a sudden. So
well, it's less fine. Yeah. But it's more fine now that we have 2 years supply of soy sauce.
Oh, yes.
And 500 kilograms of rice.
You know, the thing that's terrible about hoarding is I know they banned people from reselling masks on Amazon and other online e-commerce platforms. But what happens then is, so someone bought, probably masks that could serve 1,000 people, right? And now they're not allowed to sell them. So those masks just end up stuck at somebody's house without them being able to sell them at all. So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is.
Well, I don't really have anything to say about those mask hoarders except for screw you guys. But the government is looking to ways to, fix the huge downward force that this coronavirus pandemic has put on the Japanese economy. And instead of and unfortunately though, as I mentioned last time, the Japanese government does not want to introduce a reduced consumption tax rate if at all possible. They have been instead focusing on coupons. Coupons.
Okay.
And the coupons that the Japanese government are considering include coupons for Wagyu beef, which I tweeted a few days, kind of reminds me of Marie Antoinette. Let them eat steak.
Such a bureaucratic response.
But they didn't just stop at Wagyu beef because there are other food groups out there. The government is also looking at Japanese fish.
Okay, that's not so bad.
It's going to be quite the barbecue in our vagabond blue tent shantytown. Today I think we have to also talk a little bit about the global panic going on right now. There are lockdowns around the world, well, except for in America.
Yeah, and except for especially spring break in Florida.
Spring break! Woohoo!
If I get the coronavirus, whatever, man. We've been planning this break for 2 months now.
Yeah, man, 2 whole months, and we got all the natties, we got some hotties. We're gonna go down there and we're gonna party!
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna let it stop me from partying.
We just hooked up with some people and we're just trying to have a good time. Like, if we catch the virus, like, whatever,
Whatever happens, man. YOLO. You know what YOLO stands for? You only live once, man. That's what YOLO stands for, man.
This virus ain't that serious. It's serious. It's more serious things out there like hunger and poverty, and we need to address that.
I think they're blowing it way out of proportion.
No, man, they don't know what it stands for. Those boomers, man. the fucking boomer remover,
we're gonna get them. Yeah, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You boomers, y'all gonna die.
You get a car. You get a car. And you get a car, too.
Everybody in the audience being given a special package.
And they all have coronavirus.
All right, and next up we have
Random Inaka.
To get your mind off of impending doom, we're going to start a new segment today here on Tokyo Wave. So last month, I went up to Niigata Prefecture for a video shoot, and, Niigata is really cool. I think it has 3 S's.
what are those?
Skiing, sake, sharp knives, 3 S's.
That sounds like a good combination.
They go great together. Niigata Prefecture, about 2 hours from Tokyo by bullet train, is famous for its delicious rice, beautiful mountains, summer fireworks festivals, winter sports, and onsen, or hot spring bathing. I really do love onsen.
Yeah, me too.
But, the first time you came to Japan, and, tell me about your first onsen experience, Aaron. For those that don't know, onsen or hot springs are, of course, public baths that you have while completely naked.
Yeah, so
with total randos.
Yeah, for Americans especially, I think probably the first couple times are the most memorable, and a lot of people, are freaked out and don't actually do it. For me, I loved it. I think I was with a group of Chinese classmates because I was at Japanese language school at the time. You get naked, basically. You have to put all of your clothes into a closet, and then you go into a shower room where you have to shower. And it's divided up by sexes, right? So all the guys are with the guys, the girls are with the girls. So I was with a bunch...
We just ruined someone's dreams right there,
So I was with a bunch of Chinese guys, and, we're all naked and showering. And one of the Chinese guys pointed at my... and
what, your dick pound?
And he was lecturing me, kind of what they said in Spider-Man. What was the saying that the old man said to...
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes, he gave me this kind of lecture.
You got the Spider-Man lecture about your...
Yes. So it was very awkward.
That was your first onsen experience.
Yeah. And
how are you not scarred for life?
I couldn't really enjoy the onsen after that. That first time. But the second time, and I love the onsen.
Just should have, shot some web on him or something. Well, the first time that I went to an onsen was when I was 15 years old. And yeah.
That was early.
That was my first time in Japan. And it wasn't actually a proper onsen. My first public bath, to say it properly, was at this youth hostel in Iidabashi, which actually is still there today. But they have public baths, and I went to the public bath for the first time. There was that kind of, 15-year-old, gonna be naked with a bunch of dudes for the first time. Kind of weird feeling. But
yeah.
Actually, when I went to the changing room, I started changing, and I think I was buck naked by the time this another group of people started to come in. And there was one experience that kind of gave me the confidence that I needed.
What was that?
It was, there was this, he must have been like 13, like probably about junior high school age, a couple years younger than I was. But he was, changing, and he got down to his boxers. But then all of a sudden he just froze, and he had this, super paranoid, super, petrified look on his face. Like he couldn't believe what he was about to do. And he just froze there for what felt like, minutes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I tried not to pay too much attention to it, but apparently it was a lasting memory. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, okay, Parker, this is your first trip to Japan. You're 15 years old. Don't be a chicken, do this thing.
Yeah, you have to kind of make the jump, I think.
Yes. And so from that point on, I decided that I was just going to do public baths. And I was, if I didn't know what I was doing, I'd see what other people were doing, and I would just go about my business. And I was totally fine from then. So it was just a matter of seeing another American react a lot poorly than I did, and thinking, God, I just don't want to be that guy. But don't you have those moments in Japan where you see somebody, onsen is an easy example, but you see somebody kind of doing something the wrong way, and you're just like, just whatever I do, I don't want to be that person.
Now I know what not to do. Yes, I see that all the time. It's interesting. I think living in Japan, we learn to live in Japan by kind of looking at other foreigners. in both lights. We look at what other foreigners do that are things that are really bad, and also things that are really good. We can learn a lot from foreigners that have been here for 10, 20 years and know how to kind of acclimate themselves and interact with the society here that is much different from ours, right?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, these days I consider myself somewhat of a novice onsen aficionado. And actually, since we were talking about Niigata Prefecture, which has lots of really beautiful onsens, I would like to give a shout out to one of my favorite onsens in the prefecture. The name of the onsen is called Rankeiso. It's Rankeiso, which is in Sanjo City in Niigata Prefecture. This onsen is special because most onsens do not allow you to bring anything into the bath other than yourself. No clothes, no towels, just you.
Right.
Yes,
You have to leave everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this onsen actually has a private bath that you can reserve. And of course, you have to pay a separate fee, but they will give you basically a wooden bucket. And inside of the wooden bucket is a bottle of sake and 2 glasses.
Oh, that is very nice.
Yes, I have never elsewhere seen an onsen that encourages getting lit inside the bath. Usually they have signs saying, please do not take the bath after alcohol consumption, but this onsen says, well, for $15, you can do both at the same time. You like drinking? You like onsen? We will not make you have to choose.
Yeah. And another great thing for people that are maybe planning to come to Japan, if you just come to Tokyo and you drink the sake, the nihonshu, the shochu here in Tokyo, it's good, but it's nothing compared to the alcohol they have in Inaka.
And especially Niigata Prefecture is super famous for having some of the best sake in Japan. And I actually heard a rumor, I don't know if this is true, that the reason why the sake in Niigata Prefecture is so delicious is because Niigata Prefecture is unfortunately marred by terrible weather. It's kind of like the Seattle of Japan. And because the weather is always cloudy and depressing, rumor has it that they decided to make the best sake in Japan to compensate.
Ooh, that makes sense. Kind of like Russia.
Those Russians. So listeners, please propose places for us to use in future segments. Shoot us an email at wave@tokyowave.jp. That's wave@tokyowave.jp.
Japanese politics. Wow.
Okay, moving on to more serious topics now. It's time for Japanese politics. Wow. Is the Japanese government response to the coronavirus a great success, temporary luck, or a cover-up for a massive fumble?
The jury is still out on that one, So my good friend Satoshi Sugiyama at the Japan Times just put out a piece entitled Tokyo Olympics Delay Rekindles Debate Over Abe's Political Future. And this is a really interesting timing because right now, as the situation vis-a-vis coronavirus countermeasures within the government has become more and more divisive, we're starting to see some of the divisions within different factions and different members kind of coming to a head. People are starting to get a little bit nasty with each other.
Makes sense, though. I think maybe it's time for a rile-up.
Speaking of rile-ups, the latest news is that LDP Secretary General Toshihiro Nikai has started a turf war versus LDP Policy Chief Fumio Kishida, which, as of the latest interpretation, is widely seen as the most likely potential successor to Prime Minister Abe.
Ah, yes. He's been getting a lot of positive press, right?
That's right. And, of course, Kishida is being more and more proactive in various policy discussions. And, of course, the coronavirus COVID-19 related countermeasures are one area that we've been seeing a lot more from Kishida lately in terms of statements. Most recently, Kishida said that he likes the idea of having cash handouts to people who have been affected by the outbreak and the resultant economic downturn. However, Nikkei has said no, no, no to these handouts and favors a coupon system.
Coupons, God.
Those coupons.
No, the universal basic income or any kind of wealth distribution direct from the government, I think is controversial in the United States and Japan. It's always something that is very divisive.
Yes. Well, and I really just think that the issues that we're seeing now are not new, nothing new, but rather given the situation and the rising tensions, we're just seeing a more public version of some of the internal disagreements that have probably been going on already below the surface.
Absolutely.
But the timing couldn't be worse. I mean, we need, our ruling coalition to be cohesive and working together to battle this coronavirus. But we're seeing some things that look a little bit more Mean Girls than coalition right now. For instance, Mr. Nikkei made an inter-party committee to discuss the coronavirus countermeasures, and that means so not just the ruling coalition, but also the opposition parties would be involved in a committee that can discuss and debate how to implement these countermeasures. And he did this without telling the policy chief Kishida.
It doesn't sound surprising to me, to be honest.
A lot of people are talking about the leadership vacuum, what's going to happen after Prime Minister Abe steps down. And most recently in the Japan Times, Professor Stephen Nagy of International Christian University was talking about the crisis in leadership and how around the world we're seeing where a lack of leadership is making this pandemic worse. And he concluded that Japan has much to contribute to helping resolve this current global crisis through leadership and communication. He said that Abe should embody Deng Xiaoping's saying of seek truth from facts and define his and Japan's leadership by advocating transparency and a scientific-based approach to global leadership and communication during this period of global instability. And I totally agree with him, but I mean, obviously we've got Prime Minister Abe trying to salvage his reputation after, in a very embarrassing situation with the Olympics. Of course, we had a lot of conflicting reports with, up until recently, Abe saying that the Olympics is going to happen, there's no changes, everything's hokey dokey. And then all of a sudden you hear these murmurs from the IOC and, Dick Pound slammed us with, we're going to postpone it. And of course, then a couple of days later, it looks like the Japanese government acquiesced. And indeed, we have made a final decision and statement to postpone it, but we still don't know until when it will be postponed. So right now, there is this feeling that there is still some uncertainty within the Japanese government, but at the same time, compared to the overall global situation, it's hard to criticize Japan because its current situation vis-a-vis the coronavirus pandemic isn't that bad. And of course, there are lots of conspiracy theories on perhaps it's a cover-up, blah, blah, blah. The recently rising Tokyo numbers seem to be very suspicious. I mean, what did they postpone the Olympics 3 days ago? And then all of a sudden, 40 people, 40 more people, 40 more people. What are the numbers going to look like tomorrow? It's a little bit scary, but still, I mean, the numbers in Japan are very low, and you cannot completely ignore the role of government in being quick to announce various countermeasures. I think originally when Prime Minister Abe announced closing the schools, I mean, that was about a month ago now, he was railed because the Prime Minister doesn't have the power to order that all of the schools close. That's outside of his power. But he didn't demand that they do it. He strongly requested that they do it.
Yes.
He said, pretty please close the schools, and they all closed.
Just for those who aren't in Japan, when schools close in the U.S. for a hurricane or for some other disaster, whatever, it's a celebration amongst students. Here in Japan, though, closing schools, there were videos trending on Twitter, on social media, of kids crying, right? Because, school, that's everything for them.
Yes, and I mean, communicating this to, especially an American audience, must be sound extremely weird, but it also, you have to put into perspective that this is right at the end of the school year. So the school year, of course, ends in March, and then the new school year begins in April. So especially these graduating classes didn't get to spend the last few weeks together before graduation.
Right. For a lot of these middle schools and high schools, the graduation time and the ceremony and the time that they get to spend together is extremely important. Japanese going into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they will still meet up with, they'll have middle school reunions or middle school dinners.
Yeah, I mean, don't you have friends like, oh, sorry, I can't hang out tonight. I've got to go to a nomikai with my buddies from elementary school.
It's so nuts being an American here and hearing that.
This is not a joke. I mean, once classmates, always classmates in Japan.
For sure. I mean, that's why it was such a big deal when Abe closed the schools. Students and teachers and parents were heartbroken. Because it's such a crucial time for all of them right now.
Welcome to Tokyo Wave.
All right, so speaking of Corona shock, let's talk some economics, shall we?
Economics.
Yena yena bill, y'all.
So the last week of training has been on a negative and downward spiral. However, we have seen random days where it jumps up. This has mainly been due to talks in the US of a $2 trillion stimulus package. And whenever they talk about that in the US, it hits Asian markets.
Yeah, the Japanese markets are looking really schizophrenic now. I mean, they've been down. I mean, just last Thursday, I think they hit a low of, they went into the 16,000s. And then on Wednesday, went back up to 19.5, then Thursday to 18.6, and it looks like they're going to close. It looks like the market's closed today at 19,389. So they're back up again, but really, I mean, this kind of schizophrenic market activity, I would not want to be a stockbroker today.
Yeah, no, for sure. So also, according to Bloomberg, a preventative measure that they're doing in the airline industry is they're swapping passengers for cargo.
Yes, and this is, of course, a global news item. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are watching, but airlines around the world are really hurting from the global standstill that this virus outbreak has brought. And of course, I think we mentioned on the last episode that U.S. airlines have started lobbying the United States government for bailouts.
Everybody wants a bailout.
Bailout.
And stock buybacks.
Who was it? Mark Cuban, who said that any firm who gets a bailout from the United States government should be henceforth banned from having stock buybacks in the future.
I don't disagree with him. I think that's a great comment. Yeah, it's terrible.
Every time I hear about that guy, I want to have a sandwich.
Hey, man, the Cuban sandwich is so damn good.
And they have really good ones in Florida, right? Because you've got
Dude, we have the best. Okay, we have 20 different good Cuban sandwiches in Florida. Next time you come, we'll have to get one. I'm not even joking.
Also in Bloomberg, Economy Minister Nishimura has said that Japan will consider the next dimension of policies to help coronavirus-stricken businesses. I don't know what kind of Star Wars shit that is, but I hope he's planning something big.
Cue the Star Wars music.
The next dimension of policies. I mean, who comes up with this stuff?
They're running out of ways to just say, we're working on it, it's under consideration.
Policy, the next dimension.
Policy, the next dimension.
I guess it brings me a meaning to live long and prosper. It's a lot better than go broke and die.
Well said. This is interesting. In the fashion business, American high-end fashion retailer Walmart has found a new line of business in video conference clothes.
Zoom Chic.
Huh. So how does that work exactly, Parker?
So I just saw this on Twitter yesterday. It looks like Walmart's executive vice president of corporate affairs, Dan Bartlett, told Yahoo Finance that amid the coronavirus pandemic, they are seeing increased sales in tops, but not bottoms. And the report suggests that this is because so many people are now doing video conferences from home, and all that matters is the waist above shot.
Gotcha. That makes sense. There's a lot of weird freakonomic stuff going on right now, right? You know?
I mean, 2020, people are doing video conferences without their pants on. I mean, there was a joke about that, I think, in a TV commercial several years ago, but apparently now it's reality.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, who's going to bother with the waist down when all you have to do is sit in front of a computer for 12 hours?
Should have pressed the mute button.
So, going back to America, which obviously has a huge impact on everything that happens in Japan, they're floating a $2 trillion stimulus package to go out into the American economy. Even word of them working on this boosted stocks in the U.S. this past week. However, there's been a lot of holdup, as all these bills have, because various senators on both sides, left and right, are trying to add certain things into the bill. Some ideas that have been floated around have been checks, a certain amount of money to go out to each and every American. This is also known as, by many that maybe have followed Andrew Yang, as UBI, Universal Basic Income. It's very interesting because Yang was running on a Democratic platform. Republicans are pushing for this kind of policy to help stimulate the economy. So it's kind of funny to see these, quote unquote, Democratic ideas also be picked up by the right in the States. But I think we're coming to a time, as you mentioned earlier, Parker, in the diet in Japan, all these things that have been issues for maybe the past 5, 10, 20 years, they're all coming to a head. So same thing in the States. This idea of UBI has been floated around for a while now. I think even Elon Musk was a big proponent of it.
Was that before or after he hit that blunt?
I think it was before, but he was probably hitting many blunts that we did not see.
Well, talking about markets and the kind of ongoing uncertainty, you also have to look at currencies. And usually when there is a time of uncertainty, that means a
strong yen.
Yes, that means a strong yen, definitely.
And usually the blockchain market goes up as well. Interesting, right now, the yen is actually very weak against the USD.
And that's our stock tip for this week, actually, guys. We think that if you're an American and you think the dollar is going to tank, we agree with you. And you have something you can do. You can buy Japanese government bonds, JGBs, which can serve as a currency hedge against a strengthening yen and a weakening dollar.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. My personal prediction is that the yen will shoot up very quickly over the next month or so.
And that's going to make us marginally wealthy.
Yes.
Yes, actually right now, especially considering that the British pound is somewhere between free and 10 cents, I think I'm going to go on Amazon and order a Rolls Royce, 2 Bentleys, and a Shetland pony.
Oh, hell yeah.
Shetland. I just like the sound of it.
Sounds sexy.
Welcome to Tokyo Wave. Let's talk about creative stuff time.
It ain't no joke, as Rakim said.
All right, so we mentioned her last week, but if we're going to start talking about creative stuff here in Japan, we have to start with Maria Takeuchi. In a Japanese music career spanning decades, she sold over 16 million records in Japan. Her early work during the 1970s and 1980s is largely associated with the Japanese city pop genre, along with that of her husband and collaborator, Tatsuro Yamashita. So, quoting the Japan Times, the two of them are arguably the most famous couple in the Japanese domestic music industry today. Think Beyonce and Jay-Z of J-pop.
So, why is she still relevant now?
Well, the city pop genre, which was pioneered here in Japan and arguably was invented by Takeuchi and her husband Yamashita themselves, has evolved into what the internet now knows as vaporwave. So, what is vaporwave? Vaporwave is a microgenre of electronic music, a visual art style, and an internet meme that emerged in the early 2010s. So vaporwave embraces internet culture, and it samples 1980s and 1990s styles such as smooth jazz, elevator music, R&B, and most notably Japanese city pop. So as Takeuchi and Yamashita created most of the city pop backlog, they slowly grew in popularity as listeners of vaporwave learned the origin of these tracks being sampled. Tracks like Plastic Love.
What's Plastic Love?
So Plastic Love was a single released in 1984. It only sold 10,000 copies at the time. However, the video and explosion of popularity surrounding it has accumulated over 24 million views and a cult-like following of plastic lovers, quote unquote. This is all on YouTube.
Wow. So, but that's interesting though. It only sold 10,000 copies, but basically some random dude discovered it and made it into this global success.
Exactly. So,
do you know which random dude it was?
He's actually referred to as Plastic Lover on YouTube.
We don't know his real name?
That's his alias, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so...
mysterious.
Yes, so you're absolutely right. So, people listening to vaporwave, and vaporwave is just getting so popular. I think a lot of people use lo-fi hip-hop and vaporwave to listen to in the background while they work. And as more and more people started listening to it, they started to get interested in where are these vocal samples coming from? What language is this in? Oh, it's Japanese. Oh, it's Takeuchi and Yamashita, right? This reemergence of an otherwise unknown and hidden genre, city pop, has got fans thirsty for more as online search and discovery of similar artists in the genre continues to grow. Sony even is hopping on the whole vaporwave train and re-released Plastic Love in 2019 and reshot the music video with a Japanese director.
That's insane. Well, one of the things about vaporwave, I'm not really that terribly familiar with it. Has it caught on in Japan, or is this more of a foreign phenomenon?
I would say now it's kind of 50-50. If you talk to Japanese musicians and, that play at the local jazz clubs and stuff, they're informed. But the growth in popularity was really powered by overseas, back in the States and the UK and other countries. So I would say the vaporwave audience is an extremely global audience.
That's really interesting because as we were discussing previously on episode 0, Japanese music has had a really tough time finding a wider global audience.
Yeah, but vaporwave has just made it easy for them because now people are discovering these old gems from the 70s and the 80s, and they want it. They want the records. And even Takeuchi herself has done a lot of TV promotions recently. She's re-released lots of other albums as well. She even thanked one of the most popular vaporwave DJs, Night Tempo, on TV live.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, you've been talking about Night Tempo. Who is this guy?
So Night Tempo is probably one of the leaders in vaporwave, future funk, and kind of city pop remix genres. He releases lots of mixes on YouTube, maybe 40, 50 minutes. If any of you out there listen to lo-fi hip-hop, you've most likely heard Night Tempo in some of the mixes. Yeah, he's one of my personal favorites, to be honest with you. And almost all of his tracks have Takeuchi in them. So
he's a true plastic lover then.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe it was him who posted the original YouTube video,
Mysterious. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Tokyo Wave. And hey, listeners, as in all 4 of our parents, we want your feedback, comments, and ideas. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp. Tell us things like, we want you guys to talk about this, and y'all should say the word awesome more. We are waiting for your feedback, and we really hope you have enjoyed the first episode of Tokyo Wave, the second episode of Tokyo Wave. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and check out our new website at tokyowave.jp. We have blinking text.
The website is truly, truly amazing. Check it out, guys.
It blinks you.
We got it blinking.
Blinky, blinky.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and catch us next time on Tokyo Wave.